Hello, everybody.
Hey y'all,
I know y'all were like, okay,
what is
stream
going
coming
on?
soon. Stream coming soon. Stream coming soon. Yes, we are actually here. And
Live and in the flesh.
yes, and still recuperating from an awesome weekend of events.
Yes. It was a beautiful time. I don't know if y'all had shout out to Leela because honey, we looked amazing. Our makeup was amazing
Yes,
that night.
we did.
Matter of fact, we looked good for like a couple days after that.
Because it was one of those moments where you sleep on your back and then you just kind of touch up and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all of that, like where you don't show the circles under the eyes, but we had a and we also want to shout her out for being a sponsor for New Salem's 10th anniversary, 10 plus anniversary gala,
Yeah, 10 plus. Yeah.
along with Angelo of Michelangelo Candles.
Yeah.
And so it was just, there were several other people that donated and, groups or what have you. But as far as a part of the This Thing family,
Mm-hmm.
well, I can't leave out G because, he stepped up with those Allen Iverson answer fives. Yeah, he stepped on up and
He
put,
did. He
yeah,
did.
he stepped up and put those out there on the table for somebody, and they have a happy home.
They do.
They have a happy home. But we are here today, and we are going to be discussing. It's my prerogative, a parent's prerogative.
Parents' prerogative.
Yeah. And just a little piece of backstory on this particular topic. Let me go up a little bit. Um,
Oh, the post.
yeah,
Mm.
the I can't remember. Did I text it or did I?
I think you would have shared that in Messenger. I don't think that would have been a text. I could be wrong.
I think.
Good
it would have
afternoon, it's
been.
Beatrice.
Well, I'm not seeing the original. I'm not seeing the original text right now. I mean, a message right now, but I can go ahead and just give you the backstory to it. I'm not seeing it in Messenger, so it had to be text. But what the what prompted this particular topic was I saw a message.
Hmm.
Well, actually, it wasn't a message. It was more um, an actual, another, just another post that I'd seen,
Mm-hmm.
and it was talking about. Well, it was an article. That's what it was. It was that article. I was like, I knew it was something. Um, it was an article that I had come across that talked about a particular situation where a family dealt with, the parents of a child making the decision to keep that child away from his grandparents. And I hate that I do not see the original post to my,
Yeah.
but the backstory, like I said, is, let's see,
It was a white man
yes,
who had married a black woman. His white parents treated the black woman poorly during the time that they were together.
hmm
Um,
just dating,
and just dating, and then they decided to go ahead and get married.
hmm
Um, they did so, and when they got married, then they ended up having a child. And when they had the child, um, the grandparents came or whatnot, and then they were relieved the parents, which he thought was strange, but they were relieved because they had run a DNA test on the baby to make sure the baby was his. But they hadn't told the parents that they were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So then he did discuss it with his wife, but he made the decision at that point in time to cut it. They were wanting the relationship with the baby. They were wanting to, to move, and their attachment is unavailable. So
Okay.
whatever the article was. So they were wanting, to build a relationship with this child. But after they had treated his girlfriend and then wife so poorly, and then turned around and the baby's half of the baby is the wife, is the
Mm-hmm.
black wife
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't want to have nothing to do with,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't want him to have nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm.
And that they ended up paternity DNA testing the baby.
Yeah, and the way that they discovered that was the paternal grandmother was holding the child, and she was like, "I'm so happy to confirm
Hmm.
that you are my grandchild, my grandson."
Mm-hmm.
And her son actually heard that statement,
Mm.
which is what prompted him to say, "What did you say?"
What you talking about?
And at that moment is when they admitted to what they had done, by secretly
Testing the baby.
testing the baby.
Testing the baby.
And so what, like he said, the son made the initial decision that he would, to make the
Mm-hmm.
initial decision that he was going to keep his child away from his parents because he did not want his child to have to endure the racist attitudes of his parents.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad enough that they had treated his girlfriend slash wife the way that they had,
Right.
but then to start the relationship with their new grandchild out like this, he was like,
No.
no, we're not even. He made that decision and then discussed it with her,
Absolutely.
and so and like I mentioned to you, it reminded me of another scenario that has been in the headlines forever,
Mm-hmm.
um, where a white man protected his black wife
And
who
biracial
and by
child
yeah and biracial
who
child.
passed the color who passed the color test.
Yeah, he passed the
He
color
passed
test.
the color test.
Yeah, he passed the paper brown, look, the brown paper bag test.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people have attacked that husband for protecting his wife and his child from the attacks of
The family.
the family and those outside of the family.
Right. Because a lot of the flack didn't even directly come from within the family, it came from those tied to the family.
Right. And
So
if you hadn't figured out who we were talking about as
yeah.
of yet, um, the the situation reminded me of the Harry
And Megan.
and Meghan situation with baby Archie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of like, you know, had had we not had just if the man had not given all the specifics of his story,
I
you
would have
could
thought it
just
was
you could
theirs,
have
yeah.
just dropped them into
Mm-hmm.
that place. So the question becomes, so now the grandparents are up in an uproar.
Of course. Screaming about grandparents' rights.
Yes, and they are maintaining their rights to protect their child from the racism that he will endure anyway. but they're keeping it away from him within the family
Absolutely.
as he grows, and they teach him and they train him, up to understand the ignorance of some people,
Mm-hmm.
including his grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So the question becomes, is it wrong for them to keep their child away from his grandparents? Because people are suing nowadays for grandparents' rights.
Hey, Shantae. So I'm gonna say it like this. I know me. I know the women around me. I know for the most part, the women around me, despite whatever other circumstances they may have in their lives, gonna protect them, baby.
Whether they crack their butts or not.
Absolutely. I know when it was my child, it was allowing her to go and visit with the other side of her family. Um, and that she was four, she was six. She was six because she called me on the phone. And they were supposed to be at a family member's home, and they were supposed to be in that family member's care. They were supposed to be there for the summer. At that point in time, she had been there for maybe about a week. And I'm gonna tell y'all, this is one of the few times my child has ever been away from my side. She had been there for maybe about a week, and maybe about a week, week and a half. Like it hadn't been a full 2 weeks. And she called me one night, and she was just absolutely, positively in tears. And she was saying that her sister had her watching something that she knew I didn't approve of,
Mm-hmm.
and basically told her she had to watch it. And then she turned around and put on a horror movie with my little one, who we don't do that. And then it got to a point where the more I talked to my child, my child, who at that point in time had only taken baths, because again, she's little, she's like six, and she would put her in the shower and turn hot water on her. And the whole time, I'm like, where are the adults? In their room with the door closed. So y'all got these little kids in your house, and you're in the room with the door closed. I think that child was 13 before she went up there again. And when she went up there, she went up there with very explicit. Look, it wasn't even that I gave her explicit instructions. Hey, it wasn't even that I. Yeah, right. It wasn't even that I gave her very explicit instructions. I called the house that she was going to, and I let them know. And then when she was actually traveling with her father because she was going to visit her father's family. So when her father arrived, I let him know. I pulled him to the side. Let I'm having my baby. He already knew how I felt. So he knew, like, when she was with him, he was like kid gloves the whole time. Let something happen to my baby. She gonna be up there with family. She was up there with family before. And you see what happened.
And she was a lot younger.
And she was a baby. Let something happen to my child while she's in your care. I said, because at this point in time, it's not even a matter of she's traveling with you and you've taken her to, this relative's house and you're leaving her there with this particular relative. As far as I'm concerned, she's in your care, not anybody else's care. She's in your care. I looked him dead in his eye. I took his revolver out of his car, and with it in my hand, I looked him dead in his eye. I said, let something. happened to my child. He said, yes, ma'am. We went on about our business, went on our separate ways. A week later, I had my child back. I don't believe in that. I have another friend. She is amazing. But when I talk about a mother bear, a mama bear, she is amazing. And she has uh, three little ladies. And that middle little lady has a very interesting paternal family. And I sat there while she told that other side of the family. You're not going to bring that your racism, your dysfunction. You're not going. We're not going to have this in my child's life. So I'm gonna need you to leave my house, and she won't be back at yours. Don't play that. I've watched her. I've watched her. I've watched her with her youngest when other people were there, and they were all at. I think they were at her mom's house, and other people were there. And she scooped up her child. She turned to her parents. They need to leave. They can leave, or we are. Those other folks were escorted out. Won't play that. Won't play that about our babies. Ain't no way in the world. No way on God's green earth. And then there are people who have abducted their children because they decided that they could, they could do better. So whether they were their children or somebody else's children, they don't ran off with the kid. Oh no, Pimpin. Let me find you. Let me find you. Mm-mm. I have no compunction about it at all. But then again, I've been on the flip side because my oldest niece, who I love, that was my baby love. Family cannot always be trusted. Absolutely. So that was my baby love. Like she was my first, as far as the little people. Because I ain't never want to, I didn't, I had made up in my mind I didn't want children because they had told me I couldn't have children. So I had made it up in my mind that I didn't want children. And then this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little baby came into our lives. Like just beautiful little Barbara, just adorable. Um, and to this day, that is my rider. You hear me? That is my heart. Love her to death. She like for the first 6 years. What is about the number six? For the first 6 years, that was by my side, on my hip. That was my ace. I'm going. She's going. She had a doctor's appointment. I was with my parents when she was taking, when they were taking her to the doctor's appointment. She needed something. I dressed her, fed her, cleaned her, combed her hair. You know,
Whatever
that was
done.
my baby. Her mother decided that she was going to marry this man who was abusive. Now, her and my brother were not together,
Mm-hmm.
but she decided she was going to marry this man. This man is abusive,
Mm.
manipulative, um, extremely manipulative, extremely, and completely disrespectful. Um, but when we start talking about a parent's rights, because he was the parent,
Mm-hmm.
they kept us away from her for years. So I've walked. So as mother bear as I am, as a fierce of a protector as I am, I've been on the other side of that because they kept that baby away from us. When I say years, so she was like 6, so we would see her on occasion. That child lived in this city for 2 years, and we didn't know nothing about it. She was sleeping on somebody's floor. We didn't know nothing about it. Nothing. Sleeping on the floor of his family's relative's house. We ain't know nothing about it. Up here for 2 years. I happened to be having a conversation with one of the sisters, and she was just like, you know what? You're not who they made you out to be. So let's have a conversation. And during the course of that conversation is how I found out that my niece was she was here. Been here for 2 years. sleeping on the floor up to his husband. Went and got my baby. I don't know playing. Went and got my baby. Mm-mm. Wasn't, and by that time I had my own little one. Went and got my baby. Mm-mm. Not at all. But I say that to say, as much as it hurt, unfortunately, that was still her right. That was still her right. So when I was having this conversation earlier with a friend, and I said to her, I was just like, this is, because I don't even know, this topic is, because at first I was all fire and brimstone. Nope, 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 nope. I'm like, we're not going to do that. But she says, what if the child is older, 14ish, maturity depending, and the child wants to see this other family member. Just because you don't like the person, do you still say no? Now, and it's just like, but I'm not talking about I'm not talking about a parent. You know what I mean? Like a dysfunctional parental relationship. We're not talking about that. We're talking about maybe a cousin or a grandmother that you may not be so fond of. But most kids want to know their grandparents.
And then what I have noticed with, some young people, even in my own family, is when you fight so hard to keep them away from
Mm-hmm.
the other side of them, then it makes them feel some type of way like, okay, well, what's wrong? Because see, half of me came from them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's wrong with me? Is that why I am the way I am? And it, in some instances, makes them lean toward the activities and the proclivities of that side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they be good or bad.
Right.
So, it's like, okay, who are you really looking out for? Are you looking out for your child? Or are you for real, just kind of in your feelings about what's going on?
Right.
It's like, okay, as an adult, I know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I know about your little slick side comments. I know what they mean. I know, in the instance with this young man, he and his wife, while they were dating, they heard the little slick side comments made not only by the parents but other members of the family.
Yeah.
So for him, he was like, I refuse to expose my child to your undercurrent of racism, the undercurrent of racism coming from the people that should love and accept him for just simply being a part of the family, for being my child. Now, you love me so much, but you have issues with the person that my heart and my soul connected with, to the point that we were able to make this beautiful soul together. But because this child is not lily white, then there's some major issues. Now, my issue with that is, you find me a purebred white person in the world today. Just find me one. Because there have been so many that have taken DNA tests trying to prove points, only to discover
ain't what you thought it was, boo boo.
Right. Just because you look like.
Y'all have to forgive me, I was having a moment.
Just because you look like, nobody's been playing.
Hmm.
outside.
Hmm. Let's talk about it.
I'm just saying. All they got
Mm.
to do is think back to Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemingway.
Mm.
You want to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Mm. She said louder for the ones in back.
If you want to talk about it, let's just talk about it. I put up a meme a couple weeks ago. I was like the original deadbeat dad, white man,
Mm.
and I had an image of Thomas Jefferson
Mm.
with a black child, standing outside the window saying, "Daddy, it's cold out here."
Mm-hmm. Girl, the stories I have in just doing my own research, but also in which I thought was she's so cute. Bailey Sarian. She has a thing she calls Dark History, and she did two whole segments on
Mhm.
The Jeffersons and the Jacksons, and just the stories were horrifying,
Mhm.
horrifying.
If people were to for real research,
Yeah,
and they don't
absolutely
even have
horrifying.
to. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a situation where you deal with someone that prominent. All you
Mm-mm.
have to do is just, like you were saying, go back in your own
Your own
family,
bloodlines. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
In your own family. So, we brought this topic out because, even when we were talking, we started talking about different scenarios, even
Mm-hmm.
within, families where we weren't dealing with the racial issues.
That she was me.
Probably me.
Oh, I was thinking it was my work
Where
phone.
we weren't even dealing with the racial issues. So,
Sorry. Okay. So for those who, because I know y'all just heard that comment. So I am on call always, and I was the phone buzzed, and I didn't know. So I have both of my phones sitting here. I didn't realize the battery was low. So I'm like, that you were me. Only because this thing called life. It wouldn't be the first time where I had to jump off or had to take a call or had to do work. So sorry about that, y'all. Yeah, but then Shantae made a very good a very 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 good point, and that is the unfortunate thing is family cannot always be trusted, whether it's because of predatory behavior or inappropriate punishments, etc. You have to discern who you can leave your babies with. Shameful but true.
mhm.
Anybody who knows me, when baby girl was little, when my princess was little, if she couldn't come, I wasn't going. The only time I left her was with my mother on the rare occasion my mother wasn't on about, I raised mine, this yours, come get it. Even though she loves our baby, she loves my baby to death, but she'll be like,
I
I
put my
raised
time
mine.
in.
I raised mine. Um, but so if she was with my mother, or I should say my parents, or if she was with my best friend Maria or Maria's family. And I trusted them with Maria's family. Trusted her with Maria's family. One, Maria and I have known each other since we were 6 years old. These people have known me since I was knee high to a duck and violet.
Mhm.
Um, we talk about the fact that I was the enforcer when in the neighborhood. So I came outside. I came outside to kick people's butts. Other than that, I was in the house. Um, so people know that I'm about my business. But on top of that, I know that my bestie, she never love her to death. Don't mess with nothing, nothing. Just like this one, don't mess with nothing that is hers. Don't, yeah, yeah, you. Nothing. Listen, I have gotten phone calls with this one from the parking lot of the baby's school. My daughter was in school and she was like, Mama, at this point in time, she was TD. TD is going into school. Normally she calls, she'll tell you in a minute this is her auntie, but she calls her Miss D. But when she called me that day, Mama TD is going to school. She about to go get that man. This man had pissed my daughter off. So he had been pissing her off for probably about a week straight. And this one had had enough. She was going up in the school. And my daughter was calling me, Mama! And so, yeah, like that's a real thing. That is, these women do not play. Um, and so, and as she got older, she couldn't go in everybody's kid.
Well, see, I'm reminded of, and I'm gonna put this back up here because I think that is profound. It's like my baby can only be with our mothers and siblings. That's it.
Yeah.
And the blessed part about that though that Roz has, she actually has that family that she can truly depend on.
Yeah.
Because both of us know situations where um you can have grandparents that love their grandchild conditionally.
Mm.
And that's all I'm going to say about that for right now. We all, we know situations where conditional love has been what has taken place. Um, and look, and see, went right where I was about to go. So, and I think it's even more serious now because so many people are getting abducted.
Absolutely.
Now, see, the crazy part, like I said, I was about to go there because years ago, people always called me a conspiracy theorist because I was talking about organ harvesting, because I was constantly talking about, our missing black, women and females and girls, and it never ever really getting the notoriety that it needed when a um Lacey
Peterson.
Peterson
Mm-hmm.
or whatever would go missing. Okay, it's all over the world, but then, okay, I'm gonna even bring it more recently. This girl that just
Oh,
that with the
yes, yes,
situation that
yeah.
her body was just recently found. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna tell you what really pisses me off about the white woman missing syndrome, the white missing, however it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kelly Price
Yes.
had gotten sick with cold, had checked out of the hospital, that there are other dynamics going on behind the scenes with the family, but everybody and their great grandmama know who Kelly Price is.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't hear anything about her. And she was not, her whereabouts
Were
were
unknown.
allegedly unknown. I'm gonna say allegedly
Yeah.
because of all the
Different
different
conflicting.
yeah,
Yeah.
because of all the conflicting stories. But my thing is, why whether her whether she was her location was known or not, her family was not aware
Mm-hmm.
of her condition
Mm-hmm.
because she left the hospital with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So because from her mouth she said because they needed that bed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still sick, but I'm I guess in a financial position to be able to do home health or
Yeah.
wherever she
She was
went,
quarantined.
she
Yeah.
was able to continue to get well out of the hospital with
Out of the public
care.
eye. Yeah.
And
Gabby
okay, her
Petito.
family,
Yes.
yes, but her family was like, okay, she's not in the hospital, so
And she
what's
ain't at
going
home.
right? So what's going on? Where is she? Has she, was she? It's like when we don't know what's going on with our loved one, whether we have a temperamental relationship with them or not.
Right.
When a person goes dark,
Mm.
when you are used to them being active,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, where the hell are you? Where are you?
Yeah.
I don't care where you are. I just need to know you're okay. But back to my point, this woman who is known by everybody under the sun
Mm-hmm.
is missing in action
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's saying anything.
Mm-mm.
But we got little Miss, Lily White
Mm-hmm. Don't nobody know.
that nobody knows that
Mm-hmm.
is dominating the airwaves every single moment of the day on every friggin' news station, every friggin' written art, just you name it,
Mm-hmm.
she's on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not her they're talking about because they were trying to find her, it's him because they're trying to find him. But there was a scenario with a young black lady where the situation was exactly the same and nobody even knew anything about her.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't find her until March.
Mm.
They found her body. She was missing for like 5, 6 months.
Mm.
And they finally found her body in March. So it's a situation where, you can't sit here and say that, everything is balanced when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
No, they don't say anything about Native American women who keep going missing and it gets no news. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yes.
it's unfortunate, but but when we start talking about, our um
It was I leaned on the phone apparently. I don't know. It's having technical difficulties over
but
here.
it's like she was like that was her way of agreeing with you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was her way of
And that's what it was. I was in agreement. And that's when I leaned forward and it gave the thumbs up. My
yeah.
bad.
But it's just, I hate it. I hate the fact that there are families that have to endure. Do I let my child go around them now? Like Miss Shantae said. Okay, now when you get old, well, no, your friend that you were communicating with, when they get older,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes a situation where I want to spend time,
Mm-hmm.
but that other side, you let them know the heart of your child or the child in your care,
Mm-hmm.
but then they act like they don't have time.
Mm.
Now, my issue is how do you, without completely destroying them in the eyes of um, this child, because you always want a child, if possible, to develop their own understanding about what's going on. Because you
Absolutely.
never, well, if they're poisoned about us because of you, da 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 da. And it's like, no, because when they become of age, they'll see you for themselves.
That is one of the, I think, absolutely blessed things um, about this miracle baby that I had. Because, I always say God knows the temperament of the children that we need to have.
Exactly, Beatrice.
God knows the temperament and the mindset and the spirit that the children that we have, they know what we need,
We don't.
even if we don't. It may turn out a little crazy, but even if we don't. Um, and I have always said that, that child came, and I told you the stories, when she was little, she was talking about stuff, and we're like, excuse me?
Where'd you come from?
Right. So I never, and I never allowed it for there to be any negative talk about her father or about his family. Did not allow it. Even if I was talking to my girlfriends or talking to whomever, talking to my mother, we don't discuss it around her. But the one thing that I will say is that my child, one, she's wise beyond her years,
Mhm.
but she's also observant.
Mhm.
She's very observant. She knows how I live my life. She watched me over the years. She watched stuff, and we never know what our children are watching. So she watched things in my life, in the friends of, in the lives of my friends, in the lives of people around us
Mhm.
over the years. Um, and then she watched her father. She watched his friends. She watched his family. She watched how they acted. She watched the things that they said. They treated her badly because they were like, "Oh, you act like you too good. You act like you this and that and the other." And they were just like, she was just so different from them. And then they were like, "That's because you didn't grow up around us."
No, not being ratchet is not. Shut up, D.
And what she said was, "Well, thank God for that." So of course, I got that phone call. Um, but even so, even in watching, so I moved back. So I moved back to Indiana when she was little. I moved back to North Carolina when she was 6 because I knew the relationship that I have with my father. And I was just like, you know what? I feel like I am causing her to not have this relationship with her father and with his people,
With the
with his
distance.
family,
Because of the
with
distance.
because of the distance. And so like they were only seeing each other once or twice a year. So, I was just like, you know what? So I moved back to North Carolina. Was there for almost 2 years, a year and a half. And during that time, she got to see. At 6 and 7 years old, she got to see. And she saw enough at 6 and 7 years old to be like, nope. Anytime you go to take a child for their weekend visit and you're having to physically, literally pull them out of the car to get them to go with this other parent. And then we went back for a visit.
Excuse me.
You all right? Just it's your teeth.
Yes, I'm about to have to do.
We went back for a visit when her sister was graduating, one of her sisters was graduating from high school.
My nails match my cup.
Yes, they do. That's so pretty.
Oh, sorry.
Very
I
well
had a
too.
whole. Look,
That whole
I had
moment.
a whole green moment.
Yeah, squirrel. And so while she was there, and now mind you, we got there. She spent 2 nights with her father. The third day was the graduation, and when I tell you, she cried. She was like, "Mom, don't leave me here." And I was like, "Girl, you with your father. It's gonna be okay. This and that and the third." And so I then turned around, and this is when I knew the situation was bad. She went to, because Maria was there, my best friend. She went to my best friend and told my best friend, please, 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 don't let her leave me here. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, hold on. First of all, you don't go to nobody else. But secondly, what's really going on that's got you like this? And I had to ask questions. And when I asked the questions, well, I didn't like the answer that I got. So like the next morning, me and Barb, which is her godmother, which is
Hmm.
the other one, the other part of this triumph. Yeah, so me and her godmother went over there, ready for war. We was going over there ready to, we was gonna throw some hands. We went over there ready. But the most important part was we ain't got that child. We wasn't leaving her. But so
That brings up another point, though. Do you force your child?
I tried that.
Because so many, it's like, and there are some people who have court orders in place.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, when these children are for real, like throwing tantrums and,
Made to go.
like, I do not, I mean, just having full meltdowns, like
Hmm.
you were just describing, you know, how do you address, like, okay, well, I know what the courts have said, but I am not going to traumatize my child or allow you to traumatize my child.
I'm gonna tell you something very, very important that I learned, and it wasn't from my own situation, but it was from the situation of some children that were around me.
I used to be so reluctant to let my baby girl go with her dad after we got divorced because she would come back so completely miserable. It would take her days to recover. I got better as she got it got better as she got older, but it was bad for a while, so I wouldn't make her go. Fuck the court order, parenting time. That piece.
Okay, so and again, not my child, but there were other children because there, we have a whole lot of children in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in watching these children, and even with my own child, children will let you know something's wrong. Children will let you know.
Yeah, like when you have a 5 year old that's been potty trained themselves before they turned one, and then at 5 and 6 they start wetting themselves. Yeah, there's
What's
something
what's
wrong
what's
with
going
that.
on?
Yeah, something's wrong.
My child who was in that car, and I just thought she didn't want to be away from me. But that situation later, where she was begging us not to leave her in North Carolina, and she was like, "Please, please, please, don't leave me." And then of course he goes, "Well, I didn't know that was an option." When I talked to my child, I talked to her sibling. There had been stuff going on for years that I didn't know nothing about. Now, mind you, there was no physical abuse, but I do know children where there was physical abuse, where there was emotional manipulation. Don't tell your mama. Don't tell your grandmama. Don't tell your mama. I told her if somebody ever told her not to tell her mama something,
You
that
better tell
you
it.
better tell her right then and there. Oh, you don't want me to tell my mama? Hold on, mama.
Mama, so and so said for me not to tell you.
They told me not to tell you. I said unless it is, and so people couldn't surprise me with nothing when I was younger. Don't tell your mama. Listen,
Don't tell her.
we've had very explicit instructions from the time we were 2. If somebody says don't tell your mama, you come tell your mama. To this day, she can't hold water. She if she knows something and it's concerning anybody else, cool. Don't tell your mama. She come around to this day. But yeah, there were other, like I said, there were other children who, they were. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. What do you mean you don't want to go home?
I don't want to go home.
I don't want to go home. Explain this one to me, baby. What do you,
What's going on?
what's going on? What is going on at home? And one little child, she kept every time she came over, she was like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. And found out that she was being molested in the home by first the mother's then husband, and then by the mother's then girlfriend. Um, this child ended up, you know, there was a serious. She got into a serious accident, and that's really how all that came out because she was in a serious accident. She was in the hospital, and we honestly were concerned that she was not going to make it. And they came to us and they were like, "Hey, what is this about?" There are bruises all over her body that don't have anything to do with this accident.
So they were old bruises.
There's trauma to this baby girl that ain't got nothing to do with this accident. There are old breaks that did not heal correctly. What is going on with this child? I know another one. We talk about, parents and siblings, and she sent her, I think, 2 year old, I think the baby was 2, or not quite 2, to the father's house. And I don't know if it was the father or the uncle. We still don't know all the answers. That baby ended up having to be rushed to the hospital and has not been right since because of shaken baby syndrome. But that child would scream and holler bloody murder. Especially most little girls, I'm like, we love our daddies.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be bothered with him. Didn't want to be bothered with him at all. Be like, nope.
Mm.
Would cling to her mama for dear life. Ended up with shaking baby syndrome, and nobody really knows what happened. I say all this to say, be mindful of where we leave our children.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to our children. Protect our children
At all costs.
at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
I had someone in our lives who decided she didn't like the way I did things. She wanted things done the way she wanted them done. This is my child. She wanted them done the way she wanted them done. Because I was not doing that, what was supposed to be a gift to my child was then rescinded. And that's when my sister stepped in because it got ugly. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it just, I mean, so we,
And there's honestly not been much interaction since.
there has not been any interaction since between she and I.
But I'm talking about between the parties.
Now, I will on occasion be like, baby girl, it's such and such a day. It's so and so's birthday.
And she's like, okay.
Hmm.
And so that brings the question to me when like those little reminders. I've seen so many different things, and my stance, I have not had a child crack my butt, but I have helped to rear several.
Several. Hmm.
When it comes down to, like I was saying, forcing children, not necessarily to go with them, but to reach out to the other half of them, the other half of their family. I'm not a proponent of that. I'm like this: that child is a child that is growing up, and you cannot attack the parent, the custodial parent, if they are, you know, away from each other, or even if the parents are together,
Hmm.
as because there are like this the original scenario. You cannot attack those parents
Hmm.
for protecting
Hmm.
their child from toxicity. So when it comes down to, reminding about those days, or when you hear those statements like, well, you should make sure that they spend time with their other side of the family, or at least interact with them, or call XYZ on this day, or whatever. I'm like this: if you're not putting forth the effort to call this child on his or her day, then why should, as a parent, you make that child force interactions with people who are showing them as adults that they don't matter?
Now, see, I will say in that regard, um, there were certain occasions where I was just like, you should contact so and so, or you should, it's this person's birthday, it's this holiday, or, it's this whatever. You should contact that person. And when she was reliant upon my phone, I monitored her, and I was right there. I was always present for the phone call. When she had her own phone, I stopped monitoring her. I'm gonna give you the information. You do with it what you will. Were they reaching out to her? No. I will say to her, it's so and so's birthday. Oh, really?
Right.
It's this and that and the other. Oh, okay. Now, if she chooses to act upon that, I'm all for it. I'm like, that's on you. At this point in time, that is up to you. Hey, sis, that it was up to you to make that. to make that judgment or make that call. But I've left it up to her since she was a teen, since she was a young teenager,
As
like middle
far as
school.
developing her own relationship.
Because I'm like, I'm not that year and some change when I moved back to North Carolina so she could foster that relationship with her father. Let me know I cannot force these people to love my child.
And then to keep her around that toxicity
I'm not
was
gonna do it.
not healthy.
I'm not gonna do it. So
And
and
that's why the cycle continues for so many families.
so I'm gonna tell you that man with the black wife and the baby and the parents is
I commend him
heck yeah,
for
all for it,
I commend him
all for it.
for like I said, and it reminded me so much of Meghan and Harry
Yeah,
because he has been vilified for protecting his wife and child. And he was protecting them from the very people that helped to kill his mother.
mm,
If you really want to be technical with it from the Harry and Meghan
mm-hmm.
standpoint, because the paparazzi,
Yeah,
the media,
yeah.
are the ones that really tore Diana down to the point that she went into such a deep spiral. We're not even going to talk about the fact that his daddy was being unfaithful. We're not
Mm,
going to even talk about the fact that, people, the only purpose and the only reason that he was probably allowed to marry Diana, a commoner, was because he needed some babies.
he needed some babies, and she had some royal connection
Right.
way far back.
Way far back.
But yeah, no, I am.
So
I'm
it's
not. I don't believe in doing the toxic.
mm-mm. But I'm glad that this particular man that started this particular, when I saw that particular
Art.
art, yeah, where he was discussing it, his situation. I'm glad that he, stood up for his wife and his child. I'm
Heck yeah.
glad that he stood up to his parents, and while he made the decision, I'm happy that he respected his wife enough to at least have that discussion with her so it wouldn't be a situation where they'd be like, oh, well, the reason that I don't have a relationship with my grandchild is because you came along and you took my son and you gave him this black baby and you.
Two hands, three fingers.
And the fact that he was like, no,
No, that
you
ain't
all
it.
did not properly accept her when we were dating.
Mm-hmm.
You all we ignored a lot of those comments while
Mm-hmm.
we were dating. We ignored and see, oh, I left out the part where because it was so bad, they decided to elope
Oh yeah. Yep. 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 Yep.
and not even bother to have
The
that
family.
wedding
Mm-hmm.
that they probably really, really wanted
Mm-hmm.
with the family that they, because he had to grow up loving his family, just like she probably grew up loving hers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't say anything about her family not accepting him, but it was all about him
Let me say something.
not accept being her not being accepted by his family.
We as a black community, black, white, purple, brown, we may have our stigmas about certain things. We may have, those certain stereotypes or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
there may be some of those issues where we're just like, baby, we're gonna have to talk about it,
Right.
or we just not gonna talk about it.
Or we need you, if you're going to go down this road, to have a clear understanding of what you are going to be faced with.
Hmm. But we are also probably one of, as far when it comes to other races,
Mm-hmm.
we are probably one of the most accepting,
Because we know we all mixed up.
and we accept that.
Mm-hmm. Like when I was actually dating and engaged to a white guy, well, white Canadian, um,
Was he
who
really nice?
I almost said his name. Yes,
Okay.
but
Stereotype.
here's the kicker.
So,
His entire family was racist. His parents,
oh.
his parents were cool. His grandmother,
Mhm.
but his parents they weren't as staunch as the grandmother.
Mhm.
And he made it clear to them early on, everything in my house is gonna be black. My kitchen, my living room, my bedroom, my wife, my children, everything is
Oh,
going to
Jesus.
be black. And so that is
Mm.
that is something that that was one of the first things that he told me, that it is a situation where if we date, and we actually got engaged, if we date, if you decide to go with me when I go home, this is what you're going to be faced with. My grandmother is not going to accept you.
Mhm.
She's going to have a whole lot of side comments. You have a smart mouth, so just get ready. It's going to be a fight. Because when you come at her, there's going to be some issues with my parents. And he was like, so just, I said, I'm not. And the funny part, like you were talking about how accepting, when he would go to church with me,
Mhm.
he would go, be at the house, whatever we did together for the most part.
Mhm.
And some of my dad's peers in ministry found out that I was not only dating a white guy, but was engaged to it.
Mhm.
So they, were talking to my father about it because, at the time he was president of the state convention. So, of course, dude went, with me to, whatever.
Mhm.
And my dad was like, here's what y'all need to understand. One, I don't have to kiss him.
Hmm.
Two, as long as he treats her with the respect that she deserves,
Mhm.
he will never have any issues with me. And three, if she is happy and that is who she loves, I support my daughter.
Mhm.
But what a lot of people don't understand is my father and my mother sat us down and they were like, okay, we know you dated black women in the past,
Mhm.
but you're dating a black woman from the South right now.
Hmm. Talk about it.
So what I need for you to understand is her mindset is a little bit different than most of the northern black women that
Mm.
you probably dated, because she's seen and experienced a whole lot of things
Mhm.
that some of the ones that you probably dated in the past haven't.
Mhm.
So, and then, so, when we had that family discussion, the issue of children came up.
Mhm.
And, so the one thing that really, I guess, sealed the deal for my father and my mother was when Sean, and I'm not going to SEAN, um, when he made the statement to my parents, he was like, your daughter and our family would be my first priority.
Mm.
And if my family cannot accept her, whether they like the fact that she's black or not, if they cannot accept her and cannot and will not accept our child, if we have some, then I won't be having a relationship with my family.
Mm. Yeah.
He was like, because I've been dealing with this for years because black women are my preference.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't realize Canada is extremely racist.
Mhm. That's why I asked you what the other
Hmm.
name.
Yeah.
Um.
But what Annette said was profound.
Yeah, because that's what how we've been trained and taught inadvertently.
Yeah.
So my experience growing up was um different. I mean, I'm named for an African king.
Hmm.
My mom was out there throwing rocks at the dang police, in protest. Um, so I grew up black power, black power, black power. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Grew
Yeah.
up that way.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your name?
The fan.
Huh?
The car.
Oh, so I grew up black power, black power, black power. So I went to high school, um, and came, and had a rather. I went to a black high school, but did have, Maria and her friend group, and so she had a very diverse friend group. We the neighborhood that we grew up in was very diverse. I think we were one of the I think maybe the third black family in that neighborhood. You having a personal summer?
I'm having.
And so it was one of those, so it was, it just is. But because I made it a point, not that I had a bad childhood, but because I made it a point that when my daughter became of age, that I was going to raise her differently. So she's very much aware of her culture. She's very much aware of where my name came from. She's very much aware of the history of our family. She is very steeped in Black history, all of that. But all of the children in the family, so all of her siblings, have significant others from other races. And she dates the rainbow, honey. We've had Africans, Orientals, Indians, white. She because it's about that person and it's about that person's soul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and up until my most recent relationship, God, that just sounds weird coming out of my mouth. My mother had finally, I mean, she's in her 70s now, and she's just like, well, have you ever just really considered dating a white man? Because I think that they like us, and they would really treat you well, and they got all these dating sites and stuff, and it's but have you ever really given some thought to dating a white man? And I'm like, they go in the dark. No, mother, mother, we not gonna talk about things glowing in the dark. I don't like nothing that glows in the dark, so I was just like, yeah, I don't have anything against anyone of any nationality at whatever at this point in time in my life. However, my preference, my heart, my soul, my being, my support, just the essence of who I am, I'm always going to stand behind the black man. Behind, the side, in front of, encouraging, uplifting. That's where I'm always going to be. My daughter, let me tell you that.
Yeah, because we
Oof.
it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in time.
Jesus. But anyway, but like the other daughter, her husband is white.
Beautiful
Beautiful babies, beautiful, beautiful babies. Um, Sons. I think one is engaged. I believe the young lady is a white lady, and the other one is, I think she's Hispanic Italian. I don't know.
So
Because it's not
family
about
reunion looks like my family.
yeah, because it's not about the color of our skin.
Right. The family looks like my family, like the UN when we all come together.
So it just is what it is at this point.
Yeah, but I want to kind of wrap us up a little bit
Yeah.
with by saying if you have children, whether there's a court order in place, whether you love your parents, whether you love your siblings, whatever the situation is, never allow them to be caught in a situation where the toxicity of those other individuals can directly influence them. Because I'm going to wrap up with talking about a classmate of mine whose father physically beat her when we were growing up. We were in the seventh grade at the time, seventh, eighth grade, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And he discovered that she was interacting with me and a few other black girls. There were some other whites in the group of us, but he found out and excused the term that she was hanging with a group of niggers at
Mm.
school during
Mhm.
lunch. And he beat the ever loving crap out of her and
Mhm.
told her, mind you, we were in the eighth grade. Mind you, told her if he hears
Mhm.
of her being with us anymore
Mm.
while we're at school,
Mhm.
she would get that and worse,
Mm.
but she would also have to get out of his house. Her mother did nothing.
Mm.
And so, as a result, while she and her husband did not exclude her parents from her children's life, and she married a white man, uh, but they were very, very selective when um, with the opportunities and the access that her parents had to them. And when they became of age, that was when, and after they had developed the value system that her and her husband really wanted them to have when
Mhm.
it comes down to accepting people for who they are,
Mhm.
not for
The color of
the
their
color
skin.
of their skin or
Mhm.
their family's, culture or nationalities or whatever the case may be, sexual orientation, whatever.
Absolutely.
Um, Once they got that instilled in them staunchly
Mhm.
to the point that the children stood on their own 2 feet and were like, Grandma, Granddad, this isn't right.
Mhm.
Um, then they kind of, let them see them a little bit more. Unfortunately, her husband, got sick and passed away, but she maintained that value system that they had put in place. And when her father even though he was ill, had started getting ill, um, he made some very crude comments, and she just shut down all communication
Mhm.
with her children and her parents because her mother was like, "Well, you should let them come." She was like, "No." And if you're going to hold up for what he's saying,
Mm. That part.
then you're not going to have access to them either.
Mm.
And so, when you are dealing with scenarios like that, be prayerful, be cognizant of how you handle it because there are some grandparents and other relatives that try to sue for family rights to have access to your children. And the reason I say that is because unless you have proof, there are situations where the courts have actually sided with the family members over the parents. So if you know that there's a lot of toxicity, document, document, document.
Mhm.
Because we live in a sue happy society. So that way, not only are you protecting your babies at all costs, but you are ensuring their safety and their
Mhm.
well being.
Mhm. Because at the end of the day, that's what's most important.
Right. And so that's all I have to say on the whole situations. Like that's why we're seeing all of this crazy pushback from
Mhm.
white people right now because that old way of thinking is literally dying and it needs to.
Well, the old way of thinking is literally dying because the minorities are starting not to become the minority.
Hmm.
The beige folk taking over. And when I say beige folk, that's not derogatory.
Multicultural,
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not derogatory.
derogatory.
What is the term she used? Ethnically ambiguous. Because you don't know who you talking to, what
And
they
just
got going
because and
on.
just because you look a certain way. Because my pastor looks white, but he's not.
One of my godmothers, My grandma.
My cousins, and I have shown you pictures
Yes,
of my blood
yes,
family.
yes. My godmothers, my mother's mother would see my godmother. My godmother would come and visit my mother's mother. We're at my mom's house probably a good 2 or 3 times a week before she passed. My mother's mother found out maybe about a month before she actually passed. She didn't find out. It's finally sank in because she just knew my godmother was white. You met my god. She just knew she was white. So it probably sank in, like I said, about a month before she passed. No, no. And I'm tell you how it all happened. Grandma, she looked like Trump's sister. And you know how they talk about, and that's how the fight started. Well, it didn't start a fight, but that's when Grandma finally understood, and she went away. But she looked like it to her, so you never know.
Yep. So a parent's prerogative is to protect their children
At all
at
costs,
all costs.
and we will.
Yep. And so next week, I have confirmed our guests, and we are going to be dealing with albinism
Ooh,
and all that goes with it.
mm.
So be prepared because the young lady that is our guest, she is raring to go. She was like, "Look, are we
Ooh,
talking this week?" I was like, "No, baby, we got our topic for." She was like, "Cause this needs to get out there." She
absolutely.
was like, ready for
I'm
today.
looking forward to that.
Because we're gonna deal with it from a colorism standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna deal with it from a health standpoint.
Yes.
We're gonna deal with it from the standpoint of relationships because
Mm.
we're going to deal with it from, I mean, when I tell you there are so many different things that we're going to hit, and
51
she's
50.
like, I have been ready all my life to talk about this because I'm sick of people, trying to say that I'm not black, what you were just talking about, that I'm not black, and then not understanding all of the challenges that go with
The
being
albinism. Yeah.
albino.
Ooh. Hey.
So when I say she's fired up, baby,
Mm.
baby, baby,
Let's
she's
get
fired
it.
up. So have a blessed. Oh yeah, next week
Thank you,
is going to.
Shantae.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And next week is gonna definitely because she is. Look,
Yeah.
she is in her 20s.
Oh, so she just
So
starting out good,
so
but
she is
she been through some
she
stuff.
she is crunk
Oh
all
yeah,
the way crunk.
I'm looking forward to that.
Late 20. Let me say it like this: late 20s.
Late 20s. So she's
She's
had some experience.
yes, and
Okay.
she is ready to jump in
Woo-wee.
head first.
Look, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes, so
I will say that I will probably be remote next week.
okay.
Um, so I won't be in studio, but most likely. But y'all know I'm gonna be here because I want to hear this conversation too. I'm all for it. I'm here. It just sounds wonderful.
Mhm.
I'm ready. I'm ready. We've talked about that before. We've
And
talked
I'm
about
gonna
that
follow
before.
up with the other the lady that's a little older as well to see if because remember she did not start out
True.
albino.
True.
So yeah. So I'm gonna
Mm.
follow up with her as well.
Look, Hercules. I'm
Right.
excited.
But we
Okay.
love you guys. We appreciate those of you that were able to join us this week on this thing called life. And as you see, we are already hyped for
For
next
next
week.
week, right?
Thank you so much. And everyone have a blessed evening. And we'll see you next week on this thing called
Life.
life. Take care.
Night, y'all.
Bye bye.